Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce and beyond to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million as you up arrow your business and your personal life. A lot of founders think private equity buys numbers, revenue, EBITDA, growth curves, and a spreadsheet, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Private equity doesn't lose money because the math was wrong. They lose money because leadership breaks under pressure. After the deal closes, after the board changes, after decision-making gets political, after influence suddenly matters more than control, and almost no one prepares founders for that moment. Today's guest doesn't just advise on leadership, she measures it, models it, and uses data to predict which companies will scale and which ones will fall apart. Felicia Shakiba is the founder and CEO of CPO PLAYBOOK, soon to be called Leaderbook.ai. We might talk about that in a little bit. Former global head of performance management at WPP, over 100,000 employees worldwide, and she's built what many people now call Moneyball for leadership teams. Her work helps private equity firms predict sales growth, retention, turnover, and even which companies are most likely to exit successfully, not based on vibes or opinions, but on leadership and culture data. Felicia, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah. I always like to give a shout out to whoever introduced us. And I was thinking back through this and looking through my notes, and I don't think anybody did. I think we introduced ourselves to each other. I think we met on LinkedIn. And I love when you get to meet people digitally, no intros, but you hit it off and find something exciting to talk about.
Absolutely. And that's what that platform is good at. So I'm happy to have met you. And I'm looking forward to us meeting in person one day.
Likewise. I have one small interruption, and then we're going to get right into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, let's get right into the meat and potatoes. If an e-commerce founder listening today wants to be acquired by private equity in the next 2 to 5 years, what's the one thing they are almost certainly underestimating?
Oh, gosh, what a heavy question. I think they're underestimating the amount of weight that a relationship with the board has on the impact of their business. Yeah. If I were to think about what they should be focusing on, I think that they should be truly focusing on aligning not just the needs of their executive team and their customers, but also how that also drills down into their employee base and how to communicate that vision and mission so that your entire team, your entire company is on the same page you are, which makes it that much easier to have good, positive, healthy, debatable relationships with your board. Yeah.
I can remember as a startup ourselves, before we had developed our own mission, vision, values, thinking that stuff was just not necessary. It's the interruption from just get stuff done, right? Just get it done. Right. And then we implemented that, and it was amazing to see how many lights were going off because other people in the team were able to make decisions now that aligned with what we actually wanted to do, and it removed me as being a bottleneck. It's exciting to see that transformation.
Yeah. And it's so easy to put that aside when you have so many things burning as you're building. Mm-hmm. And it truly is, even I have to remember sometimes when I'm building my own business and I have to think about, mission and vision. And I sometimes I'm like, oh, well, that's not important right now. I don't need to share, but it is because it's the foundation in which you build. And so when you're in conversations about your business or to your clients or to your customers, you are truly communicating or should be communicating that mission and vision to your customers in different ways regarding, how is your product designed? How is it actually providing value to the end user, to the customer? And those end users, those customers, those investors, even, they can feel and breathe and sense that mission and vision, depending on how it shows up, right? So
For sure.
when you think about mission and vision, it's really about the foundation and how you show up in your product and in your value that you provide. Mm-hmm.
Let's flip to the other side of this coin. A lot of founders, I mentioned, they assume that PE is buying numbers, revenue, EBITDA, et cetera. From your work across different portfolios, what do PE firms really worry about once the deal closes?
So this is a really interesting topic, because once the deal closes, PE firms are worried about what they didn't know about prior to the deal being made.
Sure.
And this is a very common fear and worry, because most PE firms know that there are things that are going to be surprises. They just want to understand, how big is the surprise?
Sure.
And you know, it's flipped as well. You know, you, as a business owner who is essentially selling a part or the entirety of their business to PE firms are not always going to share all of their challenges too that they've had with portfolio companies in the past. So
Right.
Once a deal is done, there's just a lot more transparency, but it's also really challenging to get to the bottom of it, because you're still in the honeymoon phase. And PE firms want to know as much as possible, as soon as possible, so they can support and take care of it. Whereas a business owner is still a little bit fearful of, you know, what they might uncover or find out, or, you know, what challenges they might be having, because they want to have that honeymoon phase go really well. I think that what we do and what we help our clients do, both on the portfolio leadership side as well as the PE firms, is we help uncover and that information extremely fast. But we also, if not faster, do a U-turn and say, okay, now we know what those challenges are. Now we know exactly how to solve them. And here's the game plan. And so it just becomes a much easier way to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and start focusing on, how do we create solutions? How do we create a roadmap for value creation? And what does that look like? And we're able to pinpoint very precisely, where should we be spending time in value creation, and where are the challenges that aren't going to move the needle as much,
Sure.
right? Because when we think about after the deal is done, there are 164 challenges, okay? Some are small, some are big, but the big and hairy challenges are often really hard to spot, because maybe they're, you know, mid-sized challenges, but they actually move the needle the most, right?
Right.
So what we do is we have our PIA 360 diagnostic, which is the portfolio intelligence assessment. And we truly not just uncover what's going on, but things that PE firms, even executives, didn't even know existed. It is very interesting. It's very profound to watch leaders, you know, uncover maybe their assumptions of what might be happening in the business, to truly understanding, oh, that is a bigger problem than I thought, or I didn't even know that problem existed.
Like what? What are some of the things that are problems that they come up with that they just weren't even aware of?
So, well, I will tell you, but let me give you some context.
Okay.
So in any business, not just portfolio companies, but in any business, there is a telephone issue. Have you ever played telephone with a friend and you say something, and
Great
right?
game.
So the telephone issue is much more, it's challenging horizontally from one department to the next, but it's also a vertical challenge. So when you think about it, what leaders might communicate to managers may or may not communicate to individual contributors, and so forth, right? So there's this game of telephone that is happening. And so when you get all the way up to the board, they're only hearing what is happening in the business from the leader, right? So it's really challenging to you can't build relationships with every individual contributor in the business from the board. So they really truly rely on leaders to communicate what's happening, what's working, what's not working. And that when things that are not working at the IC level almost never get surfaced at the top. And that erodes the business value. So if you think about like what are some of the challenges that we uncover, well, we uncover challenges that ICs are dealing with, and an example might be, an IC meaning individual contributor.
Yep.
Might show up to work with their team, and their team is really upset about maybe a specific manager, or maybe how two managers are not really seeing eye to eye, and so their departments aren't working well together. Or sales and engineering, like maybe one department is getting more attention than the other, and if that's happening, they're not involving different perspectives and opinions into making decisions or the right decisions, and so they don't get the resources that they need. So there are a host of challenges that can truly surface. But with that being said, I think that when you talk or when you share some of those challenges in the diagnostic with an operating partner, they are, bug-eyed. They're they are like a deer in the headlights, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. We can't be everywhere all the time. Right. As operating partners or investors or executive leadership teams, that's actually not a good thing. We rely very heavily on communication and feedback. And if we don't have the right channels for communication and feedback, we're just not getting all the information we need. And not that you need 100% of the information to make good decisions, but you need good perspective and diversity of thought to make good decisions. So if you're not truly digging for the right information and understanding and creating a safe space like psychological safety for those challenges to truly surface, you are going to be in trouble down the line. Yeah.
It's true in everything. There's a thing called Function Health that does a bunch of lab work. It's like 100 labs or whatever that they do. And I started doing it here this year. And so they do it every 6 months. And there's like this, a pretty extensive panel. But to the same point is you can't make a lot of the positive decisions and changes that you need for your health if you don't have the feedback that you need coming back to you to let you know what these different pieces are doing. And so there could be all these problems that are underlying, and maybe they haven't tipped the scale yet to where one of the normal blood panels that you're going to get at your annual physical with your doctor is going to show it. But there's all of these things that are just ready, just about the tip. And maybe now it's too late. Or it's a lot harder to deal with than if you had dealt with it sooner.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to talk about your Moneyball for leadership stuff here. You've described this team here. What problem were you seeing over and over again that made you think we need data, not vibes for this?
I have worked in a lot of different environments. And when you work in different environments, there are very few things that are consistent. And one of those things is leadership and people. There's people in every company, right? May not be the same product, may not be the same industry, but people and their behaviors are consistent. And so I think one of the things that I've seen over and over again that really only very few people could see from my perspective was that communication, if not frequent and authentic, will kill your business, period. And I say that because like I said, I've seen it so many times. I was once working with a company, and the leader, every person truly was worried about their job, about where the company was going. They had so many questions, and we would have all hands every month, which is great. Yeah, I mean that's important to have an all hands. And the leader would come to an all hands with like a script and not answer any questions from people. And it was less about what he said and more about what he didn't say and what he didn't address. And he thought that he was making sure that everyone was feeling great about the business and great about the product and not to worry. And it was just a really big miss of getting people to have a sense of urgency, of fixing those problems and helping their people get on board and supporting the business in the correct way. And so it was just a matter of time for the business to truly need a big change. And unfortunately, there were a couple of layoffs, back to back waves. And that's, I think, the worst place you can be, because morale dips and everyone is afraid. They've got one foot in and one foot out. And there's it's just becomes very challenging to be resilient as a business. And so when it comes back to like, we need data to show that this is a real issue, that this is a real thing. And of course, like once we found the right data and once we were able to take that data and predict what leadership traits actually moved the needle and predicted business outcomes, we found a lot more than just communication and authenticity, right? But at the end of the day, that was the first thing that I saw that I thought, people are not, people are very aware. They may not say what they think is happening out loud, but they have intuition. They understand nonverbal cues. We understand how to react to human behavior. And there are natural needs like promotions and communication and collaboration and feeling a sense of purpose. And all of those things those are natural needs. Those are things that people want, and that will help them become more productive at work. There is a huge productivity leak when you have when people are not on the same page. And you can't have your employees be on the same page as you if you're not a leader who is being authentic about what's really happening, because then they're going to make guesses, and those guesses might be right and they might be wrong. And so if everyone is scattered in different directions, there's very little alignment. And without alignment, you can't really truly provide value to your customer.
As good as we are at reading social cues and things like that, we're also equally as bad. And to your point, I think that from what I've heard, when something is left unsaid, then we will come up with our own idea behind it. And usually it's an idea that spirals and it's not a healthy idea. And so to your point, it's better off getting that out in the open. You mentioned that this was at like an all hands meeting, that he came with a script and didn't ask questions. At an all hands meeting, it's very hard to let people ask questions, right? To a point, because there's, our team is like 20 people. Some teams are 400 people or 100,000 people. How could that have been handled differently in that situation, since it's an all hands and potentially too many people to be able to ask questions there? Do you still ask questions? How do you decide who's asking the questions? How do you get that communication better there?
Well, I think that first of all, HR business partners are very valuable. As much as people might think they're just administrative, really strategic HR business partners have a good pulse on the business and what's on people's minds to surface those questions to leadership and making sure that leadership addresses those questions. So let's say if it is a 100,000 person company, you're not going to sit there and, go one by one and as people raise their hand, but you should be able to have a true understanding of how people are feeling from different sources of feedback, like HR business partners, or even your engagement survey, or a survey like what we have, which is our portfolio intelligence assessment. Part of that assessment is a very, very intense survey that allows us to really look at the entire part of your business. And by doing that, and by doing it strategically, we're able to find out more information than you would in an engagement survey. I mean, I would say 10 times more information than you would an engagement survey, and it takes the same amount of time and probably a lot less cost, right? Because we are doing such a thorough investigation of what's happening and looking at every corner, we can then truly prioritize what are the biggest challenges, right? So that allows us to prioritize what's truly important. So instead of creating bias of like, the person who is the loudest voice in the room gets their answers, their questions answered, right? So it's not about the loudest person in the room. It could be somebody who has never surfaced this question before because they might be introverted, may not feel like there is psychological safety to bring up some of these challenges. But we go an extra step. We don't just launch a survey. We actually coach individuals prior to the survey and say, to the leaders that, hey, leaders, your job is to get 100% participation. And if you don't, then the rest of that participation of the people who don't respond to the survey, because it is optional, is sending you a signal. The signal is, I'm too scared to tell you what's going on. That's not good.
Sure.
That is still a signal. And so we coach the leaders. We also introduce ourselves to employees in various different ways to help them understand what is our purpose as a consultant coming in. Who the heck are we? These random people are trying to ask me very sensitive questions. We actually also do qualitative interviews to get them to understand, what are we actually investigating? What are we looking for? And really, when we do those qualitative interviews, we ask people, like, what is your wish? What do you want to change? What do you want to happen? What is blocking you from being the best at your job? And that's really what we're getting after, right? And we reassure them too that these are confidential conversations. Like that's actually one of the biggest things I think that, or pieces of value that we provide, is that we're a third party. You're not as a company looking for ways to improve their value or to increase their value. There is a lot of information that they can get, certainly, from their own team members. But because we're a third party, there's a distance between, or how should I say this? A greater anonymity. There's a greater safety layer of making sure that they're not telling somebody that's part of the company where they might, if that information gets in the wrong hands, they might lose their job. As a third party, we prioritize. We wouldn't be able to do our jobs if we didn't make sure that people's responses were anonymous. And we don't look for outliers. We look for themes, right? So if there is a very serious, issue, of course, we'll bring that up in the case that might be sensitive. But for the most part, our job is to look for themes. And so there is no reason for us to bring up one person's statement. It allows us to actually be influential for the leaders and say, actually, this is a problem, because it's not just showing up in the quantitative data, it's showing up in our qualitative data as well. And this is the deeper reason why. And we're able to show a masterpiece, a true illustration clearly of what that path is to value creation. It's unlike anything I had ever expected we would ever do, because when we started this project, it was really just to get people to, or get leaders to have true, like a source of truth and understanding of what is blocking their business from being successful. But it became so much more valuable than that. We're able to actually curate true value creation roadmaps that allow us to identify exactly when that value would be complete and by how much value. Is it $1 million? Is it at $1.5 million? Is it $5 million? I mean, we can actually showcase the leakage of productivity or leadership mismatch and so forth, that allows us to truly understand, what are the solutions to these very specific and precise challenges. A lot of times, like prior to creating the PIA, the diagnostic, I had clients come to me and say, "Oh, this is what we need. This is what we need." And I would say, "Okay, well, can you give me some data so I have a true understanding of, like, for example, how to create or design this manager leadership training 101, right?" And there's 100,000, 565 ways of doing that. And I said, can you give me a ballpark of what you're finding? And it was a lot of hearsay of what they needed. And so it was painful for me, because I thought, gosh, I am definitely creating value, but how do we actually measure the value that we're creating? And there was just no data to say, here is the before and here is the after. And that is something that we do very well. We are able to say, here is the before, and then we have our pulse surveys that we specifically select, customize for the client, and say, these are the items that we need to move. This is where we need to move the needle right here, and we need to have these pulse surveys to understand, has the needle been moved, yes or no? And if not, then what are we doing? It gives us a chance to course correct extremely fast. Whereas sometimes companies would continue on to these paths of thinking they're creating value, spending a lot of wasted time in meetings and creating programs that aren't really going to move the needle and aren't forecasting for the business future needs, which is also very important, because it's not just what you need today, it's what you need in the future.
I appreciated the way that you called out this thing that's blocking people, right? Where it's like, just letting them say, like, what's blocking you from being your best? Because there's nothing perhaps more demotivating to an A player that you want on your team than something blocking them. Like being next to a B player, a C player, frustrating, but not more frustrating than having something that is literally blocking you from being the A player that you want to be.
Right.
So I think that's a great way to word it. In all of your studies, then, what are the 6 leadership factors that you have seen consistently show up as value drivers across portfolios?
Yes. Well, it is a little bit of our secret sauce, but I will share some.
Okay.
I think that one of those factors is ownership mindset. And that's kind of vague, right? I mean, you can really think about what exactly do you mean by ownership mindset? And you can capture it in a multiple different ways, but I think that the best way to think about it is also how to pair compensation and rewards to showing up as an owner. And it's the approach that people might take, the mindset that people will take. So when they clock in, not only are they they're not just clocking in and clocking out. They're clocking in to say, I need to move the needle on something. And this is part of my purpose. I am driven to do this. I want to do this. I want to be here. And if I get a bonus, that is lucky for me. It's this mindset that if I see trash on the floor, I'm going to pick it up myself. And I might be the chief operating officer. I'm not going to go tell someone to do it. This is my store. This is my company, and I want to make sure that my company is clean, efficient, productive. I'm going to help the next person who walks in the door, and they might not be on my team. They might not even be in my department, but if they need something, I want to make sure I give it to them, right? That ownership mindset of I am responsible for anything, that I see. And if something's going wrong, I want to be able to call it out. And if you imagine every individual in your business having an ownership mindset and coming to work on that day, like, just move out of their way. They're working. Like, get out of the way.
How?
So
how does that happen though? How do you develop that?
It's a good question. It's slightly different from one company to the next, depending on, because there's a lot of variables that go into ownership mindset, right? So some companies might be soft on variable 1 and 2, but might be doing really well on 3 and 4, and it might be flipped. So that's what, like, the diagnostic does. It tells us, like, you might be, having like a low score on ownership mindset, but what specifically about ownership mindset are you lagging on? And so it's a different, right? So it's different for every company, but a lot of it has to do, I think ownership mindset has a lot to do with relationships and rewards. Do I want to help the people that I work with? Are they kind to me? Does my manager care about me? If I don't feel my manager cares about me, I'm not really interested to show up and care about my manager. And if my manager is having a hard time and they are, overseeing 7 different people, imagine like the ripple effect that has, right? So it's you know, if it's important to make sure that the people that you work with also care about you as an individual, and you're more likely to give back and look at the business as like a, almost like a, I don't want to say that it is a human, but it's like it's a living, breathing entity. The company is a living, breathing entity.
For
Do
sure.
I want to support and help the people who make up this living, breathing entity? I think that's part of it. But the ownership mindset is also, like I said, about rewards. And it's like, if the company does well, does that mean that, I am also going to take a piece of that? And that's really important. If someone's coming into the business and just, going from paycheck to paycheck, then they might just be there for the paycheck, whether the business does well or not. So it's important to make sure that people have a stake that allows them to be rewarded for that type of behavior.
I'm going to brag a little bit about Element then, because you said some things that I like, and you can either tell me if these are good or bad ideas. Maybe I'm bragging, but I don't know if there's a good yet. But
Yeah.
one, to align incentives, we have an unlimited cap bonus, which is tied to how much revenue you're generating for the business, right? There is no cap to that. You can make as much as you possibly want. And part of it in my mind on let's just say that ownership mindset is if you have some ownership over your finances, right? Like you have the ability or some autonomy over your finances, you feel more ownership then as well, right? So that's one thing. And I thought that was one of the most motivating things. And it was something we did for a while and it was good. But I'd say the thing that for me that I have felt has been the most motivating for our team is exactly what you just said about the relationships. And so it was once we implemented our values. And so we narrowed it just down to three. Be innovative. That's what we do. You have to be innovative in running ads. You have to outthink and outsmart the other people, right? Be accountable, because it doesn't matter how good your ideas are if you're not accountable. You got to do that. But I think the one that really hits home here for me is be human. And so I'm going to read to you the little like story that I have for be human and see what you think. It says,
Okay.
we have emotions. We have families and friends and pets. We have good days and bad days and even some meh days. We have hopes and dreams and fears and heartbreaks. And the same is true for our clients, our team, our vendors, and everyone else that we come in contact with, even the people on the road as we drive to work. So we will make sure that we are a positive influence on every precious human life to the best extent possible. We will take the time to listen. We will communicate purposefully, thoroughly, and kindly. We will opt for more lighthearted, playful communication whenever possible, while recognizing the need for seriousness at appropriate times as well. And while we do have people relying on us, counting on us, we recognize that we are not perfect, that we need to be as kind to ourselves as we are to others. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. We recognize that if we want to be a positive influence on those around us, we must protect our hearts by showing ourselves grace as well. We must recognize that we are not alone, take time off, establish good habits, and advocate for ourselves and our teammates against unrealistic expectations. And I wrote that before ChatGPT. That was before that happened, right? So I want to claim that this is not like an AI thing. This was from the heart of us as leaderships as we were working through, like, what does this mean? What does this matter? And there's this quote by Josh McDowell that I really like where he says, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. And then the reverse then would also be true, right? That it's like by having that relationship, by making sure we bring people together and actually establishing relationships, it is now no longer just a task that's in Asana, but it's like this is a thing that Will needs from me. This is a thing that, Grace needs from me or whoever. And so I think it's a little bit more, I don't know, develops the ownership. At least that's how I perceived it. And I feel like we're doing a good job with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. First of all, I think that is beyond what I would even consider how you show up at work. I think that's like more of how you show up in life,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it takes it a step further. I mean, it's obviously very inspiring and very much speaks to the heart and of who you are as leaders. And I think that's really important. And even more important is that you and your leadership team, are showing up in that way. So it's providing more trust and authenticity as a leader, being able to understand what that means to people, as well as how it's being displayed and projected into the business on a daily basis in those relationships. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. There is one piece of feedback that I would give you.
Please.
The only feedback is that I would shorten it. And the reason is because people can't remember everything. right? I
For
mean,
sure.
if you want people to truly embody each value, it should be very concise and to the point where they could later on, tell it to someone else. So there was a lot of amazing things that you said in there, all very relevant. I would just shorten it.
That's a beautiful way of explaining. Even in sixth grade, we had I remember it was Mrs. Hall was my language arts teacher, and she would say something along the lines of like, oh, "Let's put this in a nutshell," right? And we were working on summaries and things. She was like, "Will, like this isn't even remotely close to a nutshell," and that's when I learned my favorite word, or one of my favorite words, pleonasm, which is using more words than necessary to describe something. And so I definitely lean towards pleonasm in most of the things that I write. So I might have to recruit somebody else to shorten this up for us.
You can recruit ChatGPT. It's okay.
That actually would be that's a great idea. Okay, so owner's mindset, and then what's the other one? Because let's just say, okay, it's secret sauce. We can't go into too much detail. Maybe two of them.
Yeah. So another one would be decision making and accountability. So, well, it's more a decision agility and accountability. So the reason why is because I'll give you an example. So I was the former head of performance management at a company called WPP.
Yep.
And it was a very interesting time because they were a corporate office in charge of more than 13 subsidiaries. And I was tasked to help the 13 subsidiaries kind of merge into one global performance management solution and strategy. And that in itself was a pickle. But it was so fun. I mean, I love that type of work, but it was so challenging. And because you're here and you're like, well, you have a business and you have a completely different business. You're both in marketing, but you have different values, different, behaviors you want to show up in the business. Like, how do you globalize this? So it was a wonderful, messy problem to solve. And I think I learned a lot in that situation where it was, where do we find consistencies and where do we find uniqueness where we can allow different subsidiaries to have different values or different ways and behaviors that to really hold people accountable against. And one of the things that I realized when we started doing the PIA diagnostic is that this wasn't just an important factor, but it also mirrored the same elements of all the 13 subsidiaries of my previous work, that there were also themes of what accountability looks like and feels like in a business. Sure. And a lot of times people might say, okay, then accountability is, performance review. And that is part of it, but there is a bigger part of accountability, and it's about feedback and managerial conversations. And also those goals that you have should be aligned with your leadership team and where the business is going. So there's an alignment piece. There is, how are you doing in your role? There is manager feedback. And then there's tie to compensation, making sure you get the compensation rewards that you need when you do hit those goals. Otherwise, why would you, put in the extra effort? So this type of strategy, these 4 pillars of accountability and is really important. The decision agility piece is kind of a combined factor. And what that really looks like is, are you able to make decisions and pivot quickly even after they've been decided? And I'll speak a little bit about what that is because it can be a fuzzy. This is not about are you as a manager or a leader able to like dig your heels into something, and then when the business changes, are you able to be flexible? It's more about when the environment, like for example, AI has been an entire disruptor. If the manager truly understands your work, if your manager truly understands your work, your needs, your challenges, what tasks you're working on, they're able to make truly important and relatable decisions for you to make your life easier as an employee. It's about truly understanding the nature of the work, your day to day, and not so much where they're doing the work, but they should have they should have a very close understanding or a communication or feedback loop that's consistent enough to understand what decisions need to be changed in order to meet the needs of the future. And so when we talk about what's important for leaders, is that leaders need that feedback. They need that communication to make good, agile decision making and then hold people accountable for it. Right. So there's a lot that I said there. It's a very rich and deep type of challenge. But that's what we're experts in, right? I mean, we have dug very, very deep into these factors to understand what they are and what they are not. And there are very small tweaks that make huge differences, make huge impacts. And we're able to understand like where on that line is there a break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me paint like a word picture, see if I kind of gathered it here. Rowing, for some reason, the thing that was going in my mind was like rowing a boat, and you're rowing the boat, and the leader is the one who's kind of like telling everybody else, what to do, kind of thing. They're saying, okay, you got to row this direction. This is the direction we're going to row. And then if there's not the feedback there, they don't have it. But let's say the feedback's there, and they say, one problem, we don't have any oars. Okay, great. So that's a problem. We're all going to use our hands then for right now. And this is the direction we're going to row until we get the oar, right? So they're doing it with their hands. And then let's just say if you're the leader who's just stuck in the ways, then when the other team comes and brings you some oars and now you have oars and you're able to row, then you're like, no, that's not how we do it here. We use our hands here. And it's like, well, okay, but the goal is this is where we're trying to get here. We want to get there as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so now we have this. We need to change what we're doing. We're going to pivot how we're doing it. Oh, guess what? Now there's wind coming at us and it's going this direction. So we were rowing this way. Now we got to row this way to still end up in the same position that we were trying to go. And so there's all of these feedback loops that need to have happen in order for you to do that. So the unwavering part of this is here's where we're going. That's where that mission, vision, value comes up. Here's where we're going. That's the unwavering part. Dig in all in on that. How we get there might have to change pivots along the way in order to make that happen.
100%. And I would even take it a step further. First of all, I love your analogy. I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I would even go a step further and say that, let's say like the leader's at the front of the boat, and then you've got, a manager and like two individual contributors in the boat. And it's really about the decision agility is more mid-level manager, focused. I mean, it is for all leaders, but if the manager knows those two individual contributors very well and understands their world and their work, they might say, oh, Jake over here we can actually stop on the side of the island. He can make an oar out of the tree and then we can keep rowing, So,
love it.
Like they truly understand like their team and their capabilities in order to make those shifting decisions very quickly. Right. So, I mean, this, but you could think about however many different scenarios can you think of around decision agility, right? But the core is about, does the middle manager understand where we're going from the leader, and also be able to make quick decisions by understanding the true context of the work that their teams are in to make great decisions that are fast and are of good quality.
I want to shift and ask a couple of questions about the special cases for e-commerce, or at least what makes it different, since the majority of listeners are in that space. They're not as people-centric businesses as they are product-centric. And so that means that maybe the teams are only 20 to 100 people. They're not massive teams, right? Mm-hmm. Does a smaller, tighter team, does that increase leadership risk or reduce it?
A smaller, tighter team, does it increase risk or reduce it?
Yeah, the leadership.
I don't think it's team size that matters.
Okay.
I think what matters, it's not the size that matters. It's really about building trust. Leadership teams that build trust, strategic trust, meaning trust of like, do people trust me as a leader to make good decisions for the business?
Sure.
That's really what matters. And I mean, at the end of the day, a good decision might be to have a smaller leadership team. It may be to have a bigger leadership team. It may be to have the right leadership team, right? So it's much more foundational, being able to trust leadership to make good decisions. And then part of those decisions are, how do I surround myself? Who do I surround myself with to help me make good decisions? Do employees understand how my decisions are being made? And am I communicating what that is? Like, many, many times there is a very big disconnect between, private equity or the board and the individual contributor. There's a lot of different layers there, right? Back to the name of telephone. So the better leaders can communicate, the more likely their teams are going to understand why those decisions are being made, and then be able to relate it back to their own work and say, how do I contribute to this mission and vision? How do I make sure that when I show up to work and I create this product or I send that email or whatnot, it's in line with the direction that we're going? But if I see a lot of decisions being made and I'm not really sure why, I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and it may not align with this new direction. And I think that change is really, leaders who can't instill the thought that change is constant.
Sure.
I think that's when you get into sticky situation. Change, I know it's very funny to say, but change needs to be constant, especially in the era of where we are today, with AI. Even my own company, I think I had mentioned to you before that we are going through our own transformation, where we started out as pure consulting, leadership and human capital consulting, and we have now grown into an AI company where we have an executive intelligence platform to both enable us as consultants and enable our clients to have better quality information at their fingertips, have a smoother process in the playbook that we have. So we have different playbooks. So it's just a smoother, more customized, personalized process for them, and wicked fast turnarounds now that we can provide data and value creation planning for. I mean, it is absolutely, the speed in which we are moving is at lightning speed.
I love it.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to experience. I mean, when we're going to grow up one day and we're going to see the whole world change, not like it was a few years ago, but it's going to be very different for even our own kids. And so even I have been in my own transformation, my own business. And I think that we're doing a great job being very adaptable and understanding where we can provide more value for our clients. And in doing so, I can't think of doing it any other way, right? It's just being adaptable, being open-minded, making sure that even I am being very precise and communicative with my team internally and help them understand why we're making these decisions. And I'm also soliciting feedback. That's part of decision agility, is being able to have, like I said earlier, diversity of thought to make good decisions. And that also goes back to having a diverse workforce. And I know that's kind of like a weird, sticky word or unsticky word to say right now, but politically speaking, but I think that it's not about diversity of ethnicity or gender or things like that. It's about diversity of thought. And to get diversity of thought, sometimes you need different genders and ethnicity and experiences, right? So it's rooted in those things. But the goal is to have people in your team that have different skill sets, different experiences, and give you different perspective. And if I didn't have that, if I didn't solicit feedback, I probably would still be where we were about a year ago, continuing on the traditional leadership and human capital consulting process. Whereas now we are very much in line with understanding our clients' needs and what they're going through. We're going through as well in our own AI transformation. And like I said, I think we have probably 10x our value because we've been this adaptable and we've been listening and getting, those diverse perspectives of building our business.
It's very well worded, and I can appreciate the fact that your mission hasn't changed, right? And I think that's what makes it easier for you to be able to communicate these decisions and thought processes. Like, look, this is still our mission, but maybe instead of using this wooden ore, we're using these metal ores now. And here's a way that we can do this, and this is going to allow us to do X, Y, Z. And so I think, to your point, when the mission is still able to be communicated, you can show how the decisions are lining up to that, and that makes it easier for people to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And leaders, I think going back to like the very first thing that we talked about, which was the mission and vision. And it's not about changing mission and vision. It's about how you approach it, right? And what resources are available to you. And talent is critical. The right talent, the right spot, the right leaders, making sure they're holding themselves and their teams accountable, making good decisions, and having that communication all the way through the business. And those types of behaviors, I think, are more necessary and needed than any other time in history, because every business is going through transformation. And so now, in addition to portfolio intelligence assessment for portfolio companies, we're now able to have our own AI transformation and value creation playbook that we provide to our clients, where we have a full understanding of, how do you make decisions around AI? There are, again, thousands of different ways, but to truly help businesses make decisions around their leadership teams and helping their leadership teams identify root causes, right? Not surface level challenges, but root causes of what type of like AI opportunities that can be injected both on the productivity and internal efficiency side, but also for the innovation and creativity of new products and how they serve their clients and customers are also like it's twofold, right? It's about efficiency internally, and it's about innovating and serving their customers with more value. And so we can now help our clients go through AI transformation with our AI value creation playbook and giving them the opportunities to discover what's most important. What do they attack first? Where is their productivity leakage in their business? How much, and actually put a dollar to what that is on a monthly or yearly basis. How much money are they losing by the missed opportunity of AI, and making sure that it actually will move the needle? I think there was a statistic, don't quote me, but there was some statistic around, I don't know, more than 70% of AI attempts for implementation have failed.
Sure.
That's just incredible. And it's painful to invest the time and energy and money and the morale, like the loss of productivity or even clients and business of not being able to compete because this AI initiative has failed. It was just an opportunity for us to say, we are the masters at understanding root cause in businesses. We are the masters at creating world-class diagnostics that give our clients the clear precision of where they should start, what should they deprioritize, where should they put all their energy into, and what's going to move the needle the most, to help them make the decisions of what to do next. It's like a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to be able to do it. And we do it. Without, tooting my own horn, like we do it very well. And the fact that we can help this analysis paralysis of selecting and identifying or choosing like what business initiative to start with first is very very helpful both for us and for the businesses that we support.
Yeah. I love that you guys are able to eat your own dog food, as somebody would say, right? Where it's like you're using your own stuff to be able to figure out what's working. And that you guys have adopted this AI transformation so well. You told me a story, though, about a company where employees were quietly sabotaging technology adoption to protect their roles. What was happening there?
Oh my gosh, yes. And that's common. So there is a fear of AI, and there's a rightfully so, because with the efficiencies that come with AI, roles are either being eliminated or changed. And people don't have the luxury of learning new skills to fill those new roles quick enough. And so there's a story that I had shared with you about a company where, in the face of leadership, they were on board and ready to implement these AI initiatives. And behind the scenes, they were sabotaging those initiatives because they knew that once those initiatives got completed, their jobs would be at risk. And they were. And that is one of the major hurdles of AI implementation for leaders and business owners and investors. And it's because they are not truly thinking about what's in it for me for their employees, and not a lot sometimes. And so we've seen that as a really big opportunity for us to support and help businesses as well. But specifically in that situation, I mean, that is one of the reasons why AI transformation does not work. And it's because there isn't perspective of what the employee is going through. I mean, once their job is eliminated, there's a sense of loss, not just professionally, but personally, about what is my purpose? What am I good at? What am I going to do? What's my future? How do I support my family? And those are real concerns. And it's heartbreaking to even talk about, because I don't ever want to be the one transforming organizations and making those outputs. What I think that is the right approach is that, and what we've been encouraging, our clients to do, is that there needs to be a better long-term plan, not just for the business, but for society and people.
For sure.
But ultimately, the business should make that contribution for society and people. And so the way that they are just injecting AI without sensitivity to understanding the point of view of your employees is that is a recipe for disaster for your business, like hands down, period. So the better approach is to truly understand, number one, what are the metrics you want to move for your business? Is it more revenue? Is it more efficiency? Is it productivity? Is it customer returns? Is it retention? Like, what is it? And that process itself, in deciding what that is part of our process. We don't come to the customer and say, or the client, and be like, okay, you tell us what, it is a discussion, and we wrestle, because we want to do a wrestling match when it comes to what should we really focus on, because it's not just about what we want to move. It's about what are we capable of moving? Do we have clean data? Do we have the resources in place? Like, okay, not yet. Maybe that's like initiative 3 and 4 then. So there's some prerequisites that need to happen in order to make that move. So we help the client think through, what does the future process look like, and then help make them better decisions today, right? And then once those decisions of like, what metrics are we going to move? Is it revenue? Is it, maybe we want someone to be on our site longer to, check out of their cart or whatnot. Then we can say, okay, let's take, we do our process, which is our assessment. And then we marry the root causes to what is truly blocking the performance of that metric. Not the biggest problems, but the root causes that, again, marry to that specific metric. We also have to make sure that governance is appropriate. Do we have clean data to measure whether this is going to work or not? That in itself could be its own initiative. and making sure that we have good data to determine whether or not it's working. And then the other piece is who owns that AI initiative. Who's going to own? Like one of the bigger mistakes is that everybody owns it. Everybody is involved, and that's not always the case. Yes, everyone is involved. Everyone's maybe collaborating and putting their heads together, but there should be an owner to whether or not that metric moves, like a name to and a stakeholder to whether that metric is moving or not. And it sounds a little scary when I say it that way. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to be accountable, going back to accountability, right? Which we had talked about before. So, all of these very, specific tweaks inside the process makes just the biggest difference. It saves time, it saves money, it saves conversation, it saves energy, and it saves, quite frankly, it saves souls, because the next step is really making sure that once we have a good test of what's working, and then we expand into making sure, how does that AI initiative fit into the other parts of the business? Then you're looking at, okay, if roles are going to be eliminated or changed, how do we prepare our workforce for that change? Do we have to change or upskill people who might be working in the factory to working with robots? Do we have to help them understand, like, you're still going to need staff to manage those robotics, and putting in like a robotics university inside your business. And it doesn't have to be a big business. It could be 100-person business, 500-person business. But that is key. That's key for sustainability. So when I think about our mission and vision, it's not just about creating, ultimate powerhouses of businesses, but it's about creating sustainability. What does the future
100%.
look like? Having a wonderful, fantastic working initiative today may not be working next year based on how fast we're moving, right? I was just on a call with engineering lead, and he was telling me that he doesn't even know what his tech stack looks like anymore, because Claude changes every 2 weeks, and Grok has like a new feature, and he's like, where's all my stuff gonna like live? And he was just complaining about how fast everybody is moving, and the updated features, and how much time it would save to move, because essentially every feature that comes out is a huge time saver for that end user. And so how do you make those decisions when they're moving so fast? It's I'm not gonna swear on your podcast, but like it's
It's hard.
It's hard, right? Yeah, it's definitely hard. So these are the types of things that everyone that we service are going through. These are the decisions of how we make the decision, and that is really the key. It's how do we make decisions, because the decisions that you make today may not be the decisions that will continue to be tomorrow.
For sure.
So how do you remain adaptable? And the core is about leadership. If the leaders aren't adaptable, you can bet your bottom dollar the rest of the company is not going to be able to adapt as fast, right? So the core is leadership, and how to prepare leaders for the adaptability and the speed and the competitiveness that comes with these AI initiatives, and for the future of the business.
It's so good. You talked about accountability and assigning that. And that's something that, like you said, maybe some people don't like that. The thing that I always think about with that is picking up your kid from basketball practice. It's like somebody has to be accountable to making sure that your kid gets picked up, right? And so it could be me, it could be my wife, doesn't matter who, but whoever is assigned to that doesn't mean they're the ones who have to actually pick them up. It just means that they're the ones who assign it. So I could say if I'm busy, but I'm the one who's responsible, I could say, hey, babe, I'm not going to get there today. Podcast is running long. Can you pick up our daughter from basketball, right? But it's like I'm responsible for whether or not, and so it might be her, maybe I ask my mother-in-law, somebody, but it's like I'm responsible for making sure that she gets picked up, whether I'm the one who directly picks her up or not.
Yeah. You have to be. You have to have that accountability. And it also, as consultants, we also are very clear on who we are supporting. Yes, we're supporting the leadership team, but who has the most at stake? And and that makes us more efficient to support our
Sure.
clients.
Sure. I want to take the next section here and talk about who is Felicia Shakiba, because I think it's fun to get to know the human being behind all of these wonderful answers. You grew up around global manufacturing and entrepreneurship. What did watching your dad teach you about people as both accelerators and blockers?
Oh, so much. So yeah, my dad was a lingerie and swimwear manufacturer. We had manufacturing plants overseas as well as the United States. And eventually they were all overseas. But he had his business for, I don't know, 30 years or so. And so I grew up skipping in the lines of sewers. And I didn't know much when I was that age, but as I grew older, I I saw the work come home with my dad, and it was heartbreaking to see when things weren't going well. And I have a true empathy because of that for leaders. And I think that's what makes me good at what I do, is because I can feel the empathy. Like, it doesn't stop when you leave the office. It truly dribbles down into your personal life, and that's very difficult. And that's not to say that non-business owners don't bring their homework with them. It's just to say that was my experience, is that the hardship for my family was seeing my dad come home extremely stressed and worried. And he was the breadwinner, and there's a lot of pressure for breadwinners to bring home the bacon. So with that being said, I think that what it really taught me about people and companies and how they grow is that those challenges were 100% with people. I mean, yes, the surface challenges were like, oh, this design wasn't what the client wanted, or the client stole the design from my father. And that's a people problem. It's not an AI problem.
Right.
The problems really stemmed from people and ethics, and sometimes people not having the right skills. My dad, he didn't have he didn't like grow up in a business. He created his business from scratch and had to learn along the way. There was a lot that would have helped my father grow past his wild success. But there was also challenges of not having the heart to let people go when they needed to go. And that didn't just hurt the business, it hurted those individuals, because they were not able to thrive, and they were not able to find purpose and grow their skill set and feel desired and needed for their contribution. I mean, it's very painful. It was very painful. And not to say that there weren't good times, but
Sure.
the pain was so obvious to me. I'm an intuitive person, and I can, I think that I'm really good at reading people, and I feel like that pain was amplified with me as someone who was very sensitive to those things. And so I just was like, even personal relationships, it's not AI, it's people. So, I think my theory was, as I grew up, was just that if you want to make a business great, you got to be great with people. And if you fail at or if your business fails, then you probably failed in a relationship or two. And I kid you not, I am definitely guilty of that. I think we all are as people, but if we can just figure out how to be better at those relationships, whether it be your employees, your partners at home, your clients, your customers, understanding the market is not understanding numbers. It's understanding what people want. It's about understanding how to contribute to people's lives in a better way. And yes, quantitative data is important to understanding how big or how small that those problems for people are. But at the end of the day, you want a great business, it starts with people. And the biggest shift in the business starts with leadership. It's so obvious for me.
Sure.
It's
well,
so obvious.
intuitive, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's, that's the energy, that I had grown up with. And so when I graduated from college, I went back and I actually was in the doctoral program to receiving my doctorate for industrial organizational psychology, and then fell in love with executive coaching. Because, again, back to the core of leadership. So my background, I have a Korn Ferry executive coaching background, which is, again, like, I think where a lot of my assessment intuition comes from. Korn Ferry's executive coaching assessment, their 360 is the best in the world. And so I have a lot of knowledge from that, from understanding those metrics and getting good quality data for assessments. And then after that, I went to Stanford and did my leadership program at Stanford. So I am really into leaders. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like there's really nothing else I could be doing right now to know more about leaders. But at the same time, if you think about the PIA 360, the PIA 360 is basically a 360 on all of your portfolio's leadership teams, which is, again, going back to the ultimate diagnostic for leadership. I mean, it is a super, super intense, precise diagnostic that at the end of the day, you know exactly what you need to be doing for your business. And so that's why it was created. It was because people just, they didn't know where to start. And I'm like, I think I have a good idea where to start. And let me figure it out. I just need some data. And one thing led to another. And that's what that's what we created. And so as far as, how CPO Playbook, now soon to be leaderbook.ai, we, give us a chance to go through our own transformation once this podcast comes out. But I think that, I'm not sure if there's really anybody in the world that could do this particular work. Like I'm truly like a founder market fit type of person for this type of work. Not to say that there isn't more to learn. There is so much more to learn. I'm just saying that I am probably always going to want to learn more. And I want to bring that information to the clients that we serve and the leaders that we serve. And everybody is going through it, whether it be AI transformation or, having a challenge with your team or not being able to set mission and vision or being part of a startup and not knowing, which direction to go and doing pivots or being, an organization, a family-owned organization that's been doing the same thing for 30 years and doesn't know how to change, right? Everyone is going through it. And I've seen a lot of those challenges, and I feel like there is a lot of work for us to do, and we can be helpful. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's answered your question about me, but I'm trying to share something here.
It's so good, and there's so much more that I want to dig into there, but let's end with this one. What's the question that you wish every founder would ask before PE forces them to?
That is a good question. I would say what they want to ask or what they want to answer.
Ooh, either one.
Okay. I think that they should be just truly authentic about what they need as a business. And I'll tell you why. Because what does that tell a private equity operating partner? It tells them, one, that you're low maintenance. You don't need a lot of hand-holding. You got this. You understand your business well enough to provide them with the right information so they can support you. That's number one. Number two, every PE firm is wondering after the deal, like we had talked about before, what they don't know. But if you're sharing both the good and the challenges, then they're going to be able to build trust with you sooner and faster. And so you're more likely to be able to go into the boardroom every month or whatever the cadence is and say what you need to say and be more influential, because they're going to say, you know what? She or he didn't have to tell me that. That's like, doesn't look good for them. But the fact that they told me, I feel like I can trust them more. I feel like I can trust that they're going to come and they're going to tell me what the problems are. And I'm not going to have to go digging for it and find out later that they just fired 50 people. Right? So it's about building trust, making sure that you're sharing the good and the bad and the ugly. And then within that same like flow, you're able to say, here are the solutions we're looking to try. I'll come back to you with a progress report. The PE firm's going to be like, any questions? No. See you later.
Right. That's so good, because that is so hard to do. But even me as a leader, I like that when my team members come to me with that exact same mindset. And so I can see where it's like, if you come to the PE group with that same process and mindset, it's a no-brainer. It's like, yes, you're a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Felicia,
but I mean, sorry,
no,
one more thing, because I just wanted to, that's hard to do. And the reason why it's hard to do is because not all PE firms and operating partners are going to be like, okay, great. You know what your challenges are. They might give you a slap on the wrist.
For sure.
You know, so, and that is not good. If you're an operating partner listening to this podcast.
Right. That's a good sign to you. Probably not the right one for me.
Right, exactly. So operating partners and PE firms, like investors, if they're listening, I think that it's okay to have disappointment, but it's still important to show how you're feeling, but also be like supportive in a way where you encourage them to continue and come back with those challenges, because otherwise they're not going to come back. You know, I mean, a parent talking to their child and they find out they smoked weed or whatever, you know, whatever the case is, or ran off with their boyfriend or a girlfriend or something. And if you scold them, they're never going to tell you again. So just say, you can express your disappointment, but also, you know, encourage and reward them for telling you, to create that psychological safety, to create the environment for continuous feedback and learning. And I think if you can do that, anything's possible.
Felicia, I've absolutely loved learning from you today. If people wanted to follow you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Gosh, everything's changing. So no, I mean, I would say LinkedIn. Definitely, you know, follow on LinkedIn. I'm constantly updating the podcast and who we talk to on our podcast. CPOPlaybook.com will definitely be available and soon become leaderbook.ai. So feel free to check us out, and excited to really speak to anyone who wants to reach out and, you know, share what they're going through as a leader, and hopefully we can find some support for them.
Well, thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely, you too.
And thank you everyone for listening. Enjoy your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.